Forest Hodl live every week, every Monday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'll see you here on my YouTube channel. I am Forest Hodl, however you want to pronounce it. Doesn't matter to me. And yeah, this is a live stream I do every week. So stay tuned. We're going to get into the topic of the title, Bitcoin Does the Unexpected. I'm going to explain what I mean by that. I'm going to show some interesting tweets that have kind of gone viral. I believe it was today, 13 hours ago was released, this tweet, and we're going to talk about it. Some predictions, some narratives around why Bitcoin's price is why it is, and why I am still not convinced by any narratives. We're going to talk about that. But first, for the people that come to this show early, you are rewarded. You get some free Bitcoin. So this is courtesy of the Bitcoin Well. If you want to compete, one person will win. Each time I play this game here, one person will win any amount here of sats. So there's a 1 in 10,000 chance that it's going to be 1,000,000 Satoshis. We've had 210,000. We've had 21,000. It's not that uncommon to win 21,000 sats. So what you do to compete with this is you get out your Bitcoin Lightning wallet and you bring up your camera on there and you scan the QR code that's about to pop up on screen. So first person to scan this code will win. If you don't want to compete, if you want to just win some Satoshis yourself, you can just sign up to Bitcoin Well using my link in the description. And I'm also going to throw up this QR code in the corner there for the Bitcoin Masters, which is my online learning community where I actually have some exclusive courses, one called Bitcoin Beyond, Bitcoin Basics and Beyond, and one about Bitcoin digital privacy, how to use Bitcoin privately. Awesome community on there. I actually have I'm running a special right now. We're going to do one more toss in the Bitcoin wishing well while I explain this special that I'm running for my school. I'm running a special where if somebody books an hour with me, they get lifetime access to the school. It's the only way to get lifetime access is to book an hour. Otherwise, you're paying monthly or yearly for access. And I'm only going to do that until there's 100 people in the group. And I have 2 calls today, 2 1-hour calls today. So people have been booking. People want access, that lifetime membership. It's an insane deal. The value on that is just going to go up and up because I'm actively releasing more exclusive content on there. Dang, only another 210 sats. Sorry, folks. But at the end of the show, I'm going to do another 2 tosses in the Bitcoin wishing well. So this show is also a sort of a ask me anything or like a Q&A type thing. If you have any questions relating to Bitcoin and you have any concerns, anything you've been thinking about, anything you can't quite find clarity on, anything around my expertise, if you've been watching my content, feel free to post those questions in the comment section, and we'll kind of go from there. All right. So let's remove that. Looks like somebody got that. Just checking out on Nostr real quick. It does look like I'm live. Sometimes we have people over there on Nostr. We got 2 viewers over there. Nice. Awesome. Cool. All right. I'm not sure what this comment means. Hacked. What do you mean? Bitcoin does the unexpected. Not sure what you're talking about. All right. So what do I mean Bitcoin does the unexpected? And hello, everybody. Nice to see you guys in the chat. Letha, Crazy Nate Dog. Nice to see you both. Okay, so what do I mean here? Well, essentially, there ends up being sort of consensus, broad general consensus. There's always people that go against that or trade against that and all that, but there ends up being a general thought of where Bitcoin is going to go priced in dollars, and it oftentimes will do the exact opposite. People can look at technical analysis and say it's following trends, Fibonacci sequence, whatever. And a lot of that is actually has some merit because bots are trading this asset a lot, as well as every other asset. So they don't think emotionally. They just react based on indicators. And it's sort of a binary function. It's either they buy or they sell or they hold, right? They don't have, that's the case for everybody, but it's sort of once their indicator indicates them to do an action, they do it. They don't just see that as an insight and contemplate it beyond that based on other knowledge. They basically only act on their inputs, right? On their code. So a lot of that is based off of sort of technical analysis indicators. So there is something to that. But what I'm kind of trying to get at beyond that is just that Bitcoin is incredibly unpredictable, and it will usually take the most painful path. So there's the kind of broad consensus, I would say, is that Bitcoin's in a bear market. Bitcoin's been in a bear market. We weren't really aware that it was in a bull market for an entire year of it trading sideways, and it has more sideways and down action to go. It might bottom here. It might bottom at 40. Nobody really knows, right? And there's this other kind of consensus as well that it's sort of failed as the store of value function, right? Gold, there, I actually am releasing a video tomorrow about Bitcoin dying, and the latest death report of Bitcoin is that gold went up this much and Bitcoin went down, so it failed as the store of value, right? And that's true that that did happen last year, but to think that I think that we're early to Bitcoin in a lot of ways, and I think the narrative of Bitcoin being a digital store of value or a digital gold is also a narrative that, or like a story and a wrapper around what Bitcoin is, that is absolutely incomplete, and also not necessarily uh, true depending on your definition of what a store of value is. Of course, if you have the concept of a store of value needs to store its value today, tomorrow, then no, it doesn't work. Does it need to store its value over 4, 5, 6 years and actually increase based on debasement of currency? Then yeah, it works. But many things work as a store of value in that sense. So a lot of people say, well, I don't see the need for it, or maybe I'll just put 5% of my portfolio in it as a hedge in case it absolutely goes parabolic. But even that, right? That's sort of the thing that you do with a tech play. That's something you do with a high risk play. And of course, Bitcoin, has the short-term volatility risk, absolutely. So people, I think it's more of like I think people that are trying to sell Bitcoin, Larry Fink comes to mind, will tote it as a digital gold and therefore uh, compete or hold a position within portfolios as that, right? As digital gold. Um, so I don't. I think Bitcoin will continue to do what's unexpected, and it's funny to say that because that's what I expected to do. And so if I expected to, but I'm just one person, right? So I just mean generally, I just mean the general public. I think a lot of people will be on the wrong side of this because they expect Bitcoin to do one thing or the other. And I think that a lot of people right now are expecting it to just continue to go down. And I think that Bitcoin moves incredibly quickly. And I don't think that the vast majority of people can move fast enough to really work with Bitcoin in a way that is beyond just hodling. I think I think if you're listening to somebody and they're telling you to trade Bitcoin in any way for your cycle, whatever, even if they were right this time, I think they're being incredibly irresponsible because most people cannot do that. And I think that's actually pretty dangerous. So that's just what I'm thinking here. But we have we have a tweet here that I want to show. I'm just going to bring this up, and it gets a little bit more into the narratives around Bitcoin's price action, which I think are incredibly difficult to understand. So this is a quoted tweet here, but what we have is Willy Woo, who is well known within Bitcoin. I don't think he actually owns any Bitcoin anymore. He's kind of a interesting, strange character within Bitcoin. He says 12-year trend broken. Bitcoin should be valued a lot higher relative to gold. Should be, it's not. The valuation trend broke down once quantum came into awareness. So this is his narrative of why Bitcoin's price action sucks. Don't read this post if you want to stay high on hopium instead of seeing things as they are. So this guy thinks that he knows what's up. He has the narrative that's explaining why Bitcoin is down. And you can kind of see here this cross section 12 years ago, sort of a decoupling. Well, actually, no, this is gold going up. Sorry, my bad. I'm looking at the chart incorrectly. First mention of quantum on the mailing list, and gold begins to go up on that news. This is gold's chart here in the pink, and quantum Bitcoin summit, and gold skyrockets, as you can see, even though Bitcoin massively outperformed it in this chart, and Bitcoin corrected downwards in this time frame. So I've shared my thoughts on quantum. I think there's a lot of quantum grifters out there. I think quantum is nowhere near a threat to Bitcoin, and in fact, I don't think quantum is a threat to Bitcoin whatsoever, because it is just a technology that, right? Okay, so this is the way that I think about cryptography. Cryptography is always in a race, and where cryptography is so far ahead that it's currently just working in severe abundance, right? The private key elliptical curve signature, SHA-256, these algorithms can take all of the compute of the world and try to crack them for the amount of time the universe has existed, and they won't be able to do it. So cryptography is so far advanced from the technology of being able to break cryptography, the cryptography we have. So quantum is supposed to be this leap ahead, but this is the way cryptography always advances, and we're just so far ahead of where we currently are with technology. And if you think about the cryptography was initially invented to basically mix messages and be able to send communication without it, in case it was intercepted. And this is still how cryptography can be used in some way. If it was intercepted, the person intercepting it wouldn't be able to read what the message said. Really, really simple cryptography. If you think about like World War I, World War II, there were people trying to break cryptography, and there was some success of doing so with really bad cryptography for the messaging. And it became this arms race of who could develop better cryptography and who could break the cryptography. So that arms race always exists within cryptography. So to think that something is going to come out and break it, where cryptography can not also get better in relation to that, is ridiculous in my eyes. Now, people will say, okay, well, we're not going to adopt cryptography in a fast enough manner. We need to do it now. Well, quantum is not anywhere close to breaking cryptography. If you actually look into what quantum can do, it basically needs to be fed the answer before it can replicate the answer with qubits. So it's, snake oil, and a lot of technology people are always hyping technology to get more funding and saying that their technology is better than it actually is. It's sort of a fake it till you make it kind of thing. So that's where I think we are with quantum. So I don't think this narrative. So, okay, but that's my understanding of it. If other people think that quantum is a threat, could that actually reflect people devaluing Bitcoin relative to a different store of value function asset like gold? And I think there's potential to that, but if you think second order, if you think through it a little bit, if you think, okay, well, there's actually quantum resistant addresses and cryptography that already exist that are being implemented and tested in more centralized technology and applications, that's working just fine, and they'll figure out the bugs, and Bitcoin will adopt it when it has the Lindy effect, these quantum proof sort of address types or cryptography that goes into it. Bitcoin will adopt it when it's necessary and when it's safe to do so. The bigger risk to Bitcoin is adopting a change to Bitcoin, especially an address change type or a wallet address change type, before it's necessary to do so, and therefore risking people based on the essentially the technology not being proven enough. That is way higher. That is a way bigger risk than waiting a bit. right? Because quantum is just nowhere near the ability and might never be at the ability of actually being able to be useful in any way. So that's my theory on quantum. I think it's a bigger risk to change things than it is to not change things. So if we go back here, we can see this person basically calls out the track record of Willy Woo selling a Substack, saying Bitcoin in 2021 was going to 300K. 200K was conservative. It hit 69K. Then he closed down. Then he disappeared for a couple years, and then just came back with all this quantum risk doom FUD stuff, while also saying that he doesn't own any Bitcoin. So I think this just gives me more reason to continue to work on this platform I want to build, which is sort of like a Bitcoiner rating system that is bot resistant to being able to game, and will call out people like this that are pushing a narrative for some reason or another. If we also go to this one here, this also shows that in 2012, this guy here posted, his name's Furry Coat, posted on the Bitcoin Talk forum, quantum computers and Bitcoin. I was just reading the news this morning, came across an article talking about the recent leaps in quantum computing. Quantum computing, as far as I can tell, is like cold fusion. It doesn't exist. And there's people scamming people out there with it, with the ideas of it, and trying to get people's money from it, government funding, all sorts of stuff. It's always, a couple years away. It's just like the Mars base. Now it's a moon base. Yeah, I don't know. And maybe it's not that bad, but it's up there with how much of a grift it is, in my opinion. So I would just be wary of people telling you exactly where they think Bitcoin is going. I think these people are full of shit. I feel like they don't know anything. And I think Bitcoin will be far more protected than it needs to be at any point. So I would just, again, I would be very wary of listening to anybody that thinks they know where Bitcoin is going to go. Bitcoin does the unexpected. I have a theory. I will allocate my own portfolio in that theory. I will tell people my theory, but I will I'll be wrong. I thought Bitcoin was going to go higher than 125. I thought basically my base case was 150 last year. It didn't do that. I thought, well, there's this concept potentially of Bitcoin being undervalued, priced in a real asset, and Bitcoin did the unexpected to me. So, I was wrong with my short-term price prediction, and I'll just continue to wait, continue to stack, and continue to hold, because in the long run, basically, this is the other thing I want to say right here, actually, which is sort of my underlying thesis of everything. Bitcoin is undervalued. That is what I think right now. I don't know what it should be valued at, but I do know, or I do believe, that Bitcoin is undervalued. Does it mean that it can become more undervalued, that it can become more dislodged from reality? Absolutely. But there's no clean narrative. This quantum risk is bullshit. The Fed chair being historically hawkish doesn't matter. They're going to continue to print money ad nauseum. Money needs to, basically, value needs to flow into assets that are scarce, desirable, and more scarce than dollars. And Bitcoin is the scarcest thing ever to exist. So that is my thesis, that we need a non-centralized, neutral monetary network to participate in, that is not subjected to what a new Fed chair does, right? That's another narrative that's going around. Well, Kevin Warsh, amongst his email correspondence with known criminals, is also a hawk, historical hawk. So that means he's not going to lower rates. Do you think Trump's going to appoint somebody that's going to do something different than what he says? But then again, that's the thing too, is like, thinking the opposite is putting faith into politicians and putting into faith into what they publicly say, which is oftentimes the exact opposite of what they're privately doing. So I don't put that much faith in Trump wanting to lower rates or anything like that either. I don't know what that guy wants to do. I think he's an agent of chaos. I think I don't have any trust in any politicians to either do what they say they're going to do or not do what they say they're going to do. I think it's like peering into a crystal ball and seeing your future with those people because but ultimately it probably ends up that they're doing something that's benefiting them as an individual. As well as all these crypto grifters too, you know, these fortune tellers within markets. I would just be wary of those. Not going to say that they're never right or they're never wrong, but you know, remember the time traveler. I mean, Josh Mandel. People have probably already forgot that name. That dude predicted down to the day 84K Bitcoin close from, I think it was like 5 months prior. Then he predicted we were going to run the tables and go to 444 by the end of the year. Where's 444,000? We're not anywhere near that. So I don't think so, man. I don't think so. I think that there's a lot of people that the more I get into this space, the more I talk about stuff, I realize there are a lot of people that come to Bitcoin to try to grift people. They use their knowledge of Bitcoin. They understand that Bitcoin is the true innovation in this space, but they recognize that it's actually pretty hard to make money in Bitcoin. It's pretty difficult to become, to become one of the top influencers in Bitcoin only. That's sort of been nailed down by a lot of people. So it's much easier to have some sort of stance, some sort of idea to come in here and capture the people that agree with that idea and then move them over to a paid Substack, to a utility token that's, so the other person I'm thinking of is CJK, CJ Constantinople or whatever his name is. Where's that guy been? Right? Basically, he came in, was on every single Bitcoin podcast. Then he launched a shitcoin that it gives you some yield, but it's really just a cash fund for them to be able to have lower interest rates on their mortgages that they give out to people. And he hasn't been seen since. There's a lot of grifters and I'm not saying he's a grifter, I'm not saying him specifically, but I am saying that people come into this space with the idea of showcasing how much they know about Bitcoin, having some sort of interesting novel idea, and then bringing people over to something where they can actually take those people's money in some direct way. So I would I would be really wary of anybody. And if you feel there's some sort of, I think we all need to tune our bullshit sensors a little bit, because that dude was great on podcasts. I really enjoyed it. And then they came out with this crypto rail coin, and I was like, I'm done. And people were still, like, oh, but is it gonna, like, what's up with that? Like, I want lower rates on my, it's sort of the idea of like, I want lower rates on my mortgage, and it's like, yeah, and I want Bitcoin to be used as collateral. Yeah. Does it need to happen through some crypto rail thing? No. And we'll see all about that, but that's about all I'll say there. All right. Happy Monday, everybody. What's up, Paul? Okay, we got a question or comment here. Arthur, quantum cryptography is also being worked on outside of Bitcoin, so solutions don't even have to come from within the Bitcoin dev space. Exactly. And they won't. I mean, Bitcoin itself is novel in the way where the concepts, ideas, and the application, how it actually runs and works is a completely novel idea, and we always have to use analogies to try to explain it because of how novel it is. But it's built on technologies that already existed. It was built on top of the internet. It was built on top of SHA-256. It was built on top of the idea of Hashcash, right? It was just combined all of these ideas to make a sound money protocol. So that's going to be the same case here. And Bitcoin should not be the first adopter of quantum resistant addresses, as I've been talking about. They should allow, I think there's I think even Signal might have, I heard at my Bitcoin meetup, somebody mentioned that Signal adopted a quantum resistant encryption for its messaging. I think there was, and he also mentioned an email service that did that as well, sort of a privacy focused email service. Allow them to do that. See if there's any flaws. See if it gets cracked. See if it costs them too much in space, or if there's something better. Allow them to be the guinea pigs. Bitcoin should absolutely not be the guinea pig for something that doesn't even exist at this point. It's insane that people think quantum is a real risk at this point. It should be talked about as it develops. It should not be, people should not be freaking out about it. Like, you know, like that guy that, I might share a mustache with Nick Carter, but I do not share the same ideas about quantum as that guy. That's for sure. We both have the same mustache. I take it on the weekdays. He has it on the weekend. We share a mustache. Hello, friends. Glad to be here. Hi, Forrest. Yo, what's up? I have faith that contributors will use quantum resistant cryptography timely. Absolutely. More worried about the spam wars and Epstein associations, to be honest. The associations are loose at best. Epstein was tied into anything he could get his foot in, trying to basically blackmail people at different points. It's an open source. If you understand Bitcoin and open source technology, anybody can be a contributor to open source technology. And then there's a group of devs that decide to implement things or not, and then it's on the users to adopt the new implementations and changes. So there's a lot of checks and balances along there if you think about it. There's no, it would be incredibly difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, it's a risk factor, but it'd be incredibly difficult for some malicious person to fund a developer to add in to propose a change to something that would benefit him in his malicious intent, right? Be some sort of like infiltration type idea. And then it gets broad acceptance from people who are reviewing it very, very thoroughly before they actually implement something. So because of when you look into how robust open source code repositories can be, especially incredibly overlooked or like, thoroughly looked through ones, you begin to understand that that's probably not a problem. There are so many other things to attack with quantum: banks, power stations, governments, HTTPS protocol, many things to focus on before Bitcoin. I agree to some point with that. I made a quantum video a while ago talking about, well, who is the most likely to actually develop quantum? And then would they be able to socially and legally take out an attack that is stealing something from other people, right? Stealing people's Bitcoin. I don't think that's likely either. So I think that, even if quantum exists tomorrow, I don't think that necessarily, like, obviously price would go nuts. But I don't think that it would necessarily mean that everybody's Bitcoin is getting stolen, right? Or everybody's quantum reachable or quantum susceptible wallets. Because even if you just have, Zapstream just went down. Damn. Anyway, if you have Bitcoin just in a SegWit wallet, you're not susceptible to quantum anyway. It's only when you make it a transaction, and then they basically will see the public key for that address, and then they'll be able to attack it all within the time that you're making that transaction. And then they have to make a transaction faster than you, and likely that's all next to impossible. So there's pay to public key wallets that are susceptible, and then there's Taproot wallets that are acceptable. So I don't know, maybe a couple million or something like that. It's significant, the amount of Bitcoin or the amount of wallets, but not all Bitcoin wallets are susceptible to a quantum attack anyway. So so right there, I'll just say people, so who develops quantum, right? It's not just Joe Blow in his basement developing quantum and then stealing everybody's Bitcoin without social or legal repercussion from doing so. The one thing I would say there is Bitcoin doesn't care, right? There's no clawbacks. Bitcoin doesn't care who owns what, right? It's a set of rules. If you have the private keys, you can move Bitcoin. So if it was socially okay, legally okay, or if some nefarious developer develops quantum, if they attack a bank, if they attack a power station, if they attack a government HTTPS protocol, there's going to be a serious attack, and there's going to be a lot of ways to mitigate that or to roll it back. Or, I mean, they could cause some damage, with power stations, government, stuff like that, of course. But if it was purely for financial purposes, which it could be financial then too, because they could basically place bets and markets and things like that, and then perform an attack or something, right? So they could manipulate the markets that way. But it's much more direct and much less of a known victim, and also a person that can defend themselves if it was Bitcoin that they were targeting. So that sort of to steelman the argument, or to kind of take the counterpoint there, Bitcoin is sort of this pseudonymous network that it's hard to know who the victims are, and therefore the victims don't really have a lot of power if their Bitcoin was stolen from something like quantum. It's almost seen like a victimless crime, because who is the victim? Like, there can be people that come out and prove that they were a victim, but what kind of recourse, or there might be some wallet, like lost wallet, Satoshi wallet, like Satoshi going to come out, right, if his coins get stolen? So there's sort of an argument there, but again, just all the other things that I've talked about basically negate that anyway. Did anyone see Larry Lepard rage quit on Scott Melker's show today, feeling like things are getting tense for us Bitcoiners? No, I didn't see that. I agree with Forrest. I think that any price below 100K is a steal. Yeah, I mean, any price where somebody's willing to accept fiat that was printed at nothing for Bitcoin is a steal. But again, things are relative to your moment and perspective. So that might not seem like the case, but in the long run, it is the case, in my opinion. Bitcoin average electricity cost is about 58K. If it drops below that, miners shut down and selling stops. If we didn't touch bottom, it's close. Miners are not the main seller in this market. It's sort of it's sort of like swing trading cycle traders. The average cost of electricity, there's an obviously there's an average that exists. I think my last video was about this even, and it was sort of like a clickbaity type thing, because a lot of people are talking about, oh, Bitcoin's in a death spiral. The average cost to mine a Bitcoin is 90K. The difficulty adjustment and the varying degrees of how people source electricity and their reasons to run miners, basically, there is no calculable standard average cost to mine Bitcoin. It is a fluctuating, moving thing, just like the price of Bitcoin, constantly. And the difficulty adjustment really, really makes it very fluid in the way that it moves. So I don't think that's I don't think it's an issue at all. I think people are just, the Bitcoin mining network is the perfect representation of the free market. If Bitcoin mining isn't profitable for you, you shut off your miners. If it's profitable, you turn them on. It's that easy, right? It's that easy. So yeah, Larry needs to relax. Sure, we all need to relax, don't we? If you believe Bitcoin and gold are equal, Bitcoin should be at 1.7 mil, significantly undervalued. Yeah, I don't think Bitcoin and gold. Hey, what's up, Dor? By the way, I don't think Bitcoin and gold are equal. I think Bitcoin is significantly better. And I think that gold is probably undervalued as well. I think gold is sort of a physical representation, right? It's analog Bitcoin is one way to think about it. It has, some utility, a value to it, which is extremely low if you think about its use in industrials and things. But it nonetheless has a cost of production and outweighs the dollar significantly. Like, I think literally anything priced in dollars is undervalued because the dollar is overvalued. We overvalue the dollar too much. But just based off, all things being equal, obviously Bitcoin should be much, much higher. And I agree with you there for sure. Love the mustache go. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. I'm a comedian. Hi, Forrest. If I send Bitcoin to a new device, such as a Trezor device, and never send out any transaction, does that help safeguard against being stolen or attacked? Yeah, it makes your Bitcoin quantum safe in that sense. Each derived address that you send your Bitcoin to has a corresponding private key, and all of this is derived from your master public key and your master private key, which is derived from your seed phrase. So all of those are unique, and all of those are not exposed if you just receive Bitcoin to them. But this is not a concern that you should be worried about in the least, in my opinion. As I said, quantum is far off if it even exists whatsoever. But yes, to answer your question, yeah, your Bitcoin in that address would be quantum safe, I guess. Gold is analog Bitcoin. I love it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, yeah, lots of great comments, lots of great questions. Keep them coming. I went on a nice little rant there about Bitcoin influencers, Webby Woo or what's his name, Willy Woo. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that pretend to know what they're talking about and don't. Um, I I personally try not to be that. But people obviously will have their opinions on me as well. But I think, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, whatever. We got lots of people in the chat right now. There's for some reason. I mean, I always say, oh, Bitcoin is always, or my videos do well when Bitcoin's going up. But actually, I think it's when Bitcoin's being volatile that my videos do well, and people are interested in Bitcoin when it moves around a lot. And so that's what we're seeing. So now that we have some people here, I'm going to do a couple more tosses in the Bitcoin wishing well. I don't usually do this, but this is going to allow me two things. It's going to allow me a little bit of space to think of another thing to talk about because I'm all out of stuff already. And it'll give you guys some time to ask questions. If you have anything to ask, I would love to talk on it. So I'm going to do a couple tosses in the Bitcoin wishing well, which means you have some more opportunities to win some Bitcoin. So you can get out your Lightning wallet, open up your camera app on the Lightning wallet, and scan the QR code that's about to pop up on screen. This is the reward program. Whoop, that's Twitter. This is the reward program by the Wishing Well or Bitcoin Well, and you can check that out in the description if you don't want to compete, because only one person is going to win the sats that are about to pop up on screen. So if you don't want to compete with people, you can just sign up using my link and you'll get 5 free tosses in the Bitcoin Wishing Well 3 times in a row, 210 sats. Oop, didn't mean to copy that. First person to scan that QR code in the middle of the screen wins 210 sats. I know it's not a lot today, but it's infinitely more valuable than dollars in the future because the dollar is going to zero. All right. We'll do a couple more at the end too. Just threw that in there to give us some time here. BIP 110 to the moon. Yeah, I think I don't actually know the percentage. I accidentally off of something I heard, I said that there was 5% people on the network running BIP 110, but I actually think it's less than that. I think it was 2% at the time. I don't know where I heard 5. I should have double checked that before I said it. But I think it is climbing. There's a couple thousand or quite a few people signaling for BIP 110 right now. There was actually some bugs found in BIP 110, which is interesting. It is fairly new code. That gives me a little bit of worry, to be honest, that things were like that. Oh, 4.5. Interesting. Thomas, I don't think you can paste comments or links in the chat, but if you don't mind just saying the website that you can find that at, I can probably look it up from there. That's interesting. But yeah, so there are definitely lots of people signaling for BIP 110. A little bit of cause of concern of bugs that happens with software, but the sort of rushed nature of BIP 110 was always a concern of me and why I was fence sitting for quite a while. I did sort of publicly come out as thinking that it's a good idea to restrict the rules in this temporary way to see if it works for inscriptions. Obviously, there's going to be workarounds. People are going to find workarounds, but I think signaling that we are less friendly, less able, that we are a less able network to have data on is a positive for Bitcoin. And I think at the consensus layer, should help if we do that change. But I don't know for sure. You know, I don't know for sure that it's a good idea. A lot of people that were talking about knots and filters and stuff. I was always, I talked about it as well, but people were talking about, well, when op return comes out, there's going to be CSAM in the chain, or when the default gets changed in op return. And there was evidence of that happening on BSV when they adjusted the op return up. It happened very quickly after. It has not happened on Bitcoin. There has been other things put into op returns since, but not illegal content. So I was always I was always hesitant to believe that. Um, I actually thought it was going to happen. I think I was more hesitant to think that it was going to stop people from running nodes, which a lot of people really think that that's the case. So I kind of thought, I think people are still going to run Bitcoin nodes, even if that's on there, because it needs to be sort of translated into something still at some point. And I know that's not an argument for you not holding something on your hardware, but yeah. Anyway, we got lots of good questions here. Appreciate it all. I'm going to get to them all. Do you think that are issuing paper Bitcoin? Not really. There's a slight discrepancy that is all within the law. I think these are pretty tightly regulated instruments, so I don't think they're issuing paper Bitcoin in a real sense or a prolonged sense. But the IBIT disclosure talks about how they can cash settle. So if they don't have, if they have a lot of inflows, a lot of people buying their ETF, they are supposed to go and buy the equivalent spot of that. But they actually have a certain grace period of being able to just put up dollars as collateral for the amount of Bitcoin that they're supposed to go buy. And so that their assets under management are the total amount that people have invested in. And they can also do that on the inverse. And this basically allows them to, at periods, hold more Bitcoin or less Bitcoin than there's actually demand for. So they're sort of able to cushion the market. And one Bitcoin bought through IBIT doesn't necessarily reflect one Bitcoin being purchased in the market of everybody, in the market at all, because it's just dollars put up instead. And then if people sell Bitcoin the next day, they just sort of take a little bit of cash out, and they have this cash buffer that can just move instead of Bitcoin actually being bought and sold. So that is paper Bitcoin, absolutely. But there's restrictions on how long they can do that for and to what degree they can do that. I don't know those restrictions off the top of my head. But I think more so with paper Bitcoin, people are obviously talking about, well, I mean, there's idiots out there that think, well, I shouldn't say idiots, but there's lots of people out there that think Strategy holds paper Bitcoin or Coinbase holds paper Bitcoin or whatever. I definitely don't mean idiots with that, because there's possibilities of that for sure. But I think more likely is offshore exchanges that do that kind of stuff. Absolutely, that happens for sure. And there is sort of a paper market, which is the futures market, right? There's these contracts that that don't actually hold any underlying, but give you the price exposure through the credit of ownership of something in the future when it's exercised. These are paper. These are paper claims of a future asset, and they'll never really be realized. So that's a market that exists. That's a market that's regulated. That's a market that's allowed, and that is paper Bitcoin. So there's a lot of talk about that being part of the narrative as well, where people were, I think it was, again, off the top of my head, I think it was, they're long paper Bitcoin, short actual Bitcoin, and they flip and flop, and they're able to, there's an arbitrage trade. There's sort of a carry trade you can do, because there's a price difference between the futures and spot. But there's also a way to manipulate the market using the paper as well. If somebody wants to put a little bit of additional information, I don't have again, off the top of my head, I don't have the information there. So you can get to, somebody else might be able to fill in the gaps a little bit. YouTube CA Joe, appreciate you becoming a new member on the YouTube channel. Really appreciate that. There's a few exclusive content videos on there. Quite honestly, I don't do a lot for the YouTube memberships. The school is where I focus all my energy for the exclusive content. I might change that to some degree, but it'd be a higher membership tier that would get some access to my courses and stuff on YouTube. But I really do appreciate you joining nonetheless. Um, it's maybe more of a show of support than somebody actually getting that much value from it. But there's a few things on there. I do my covered call. There's a exclusive video of my covered call ETF on there. Sorry, not ETF, covered call strategy. 4.5% of people running BIP 110. Did you see the hash rate it picked up? Let's take a look. I did explore that a little bit on my video about the Bitcoin mining death spiral, which was all, of course, nonsense. Oh, wow. It picked up a lot since then, even. So I'm just going to share my tab. Take a quick cheeky peek. Look at that. Wow. So this is the moving average. This green and yellow and orange line here is the moving average of the actual hash rate. The pink magenta line here, is that magenta? I don't know. It's pink. This is the difficulty. So there's a measurement of T, which I don't know what it stands for. Maybe testosterone. Maybe the difficulty measure is measured in testosterone. I'm not sure. The massive adjustment downwards on February 7th, and for 2016 blocks, the difficulty will be at that level. And because it's gone down, the hash rate on the network has a higher chance of hitting a block, and therefore it's more profitable to be mining. So hash rate comes back online because of that. So you can see here, this is what everybody's talking about with the death spiral. I mean, there's been a slow sort of decline since the high, which is derived mostly from price. And there's associated costs of electricity. There's also Bitcoin miners taking their capacity offline to provide for hyperscalers and AI as well. So there's and then there was a storm as well in this period in the US. So there's a lot of factors. So this big thing here is storm, price, and AI driven, I would say. And so the difficulty adjusted downwards, and we can see that the hash rate is almost back up. Right, this is a really, really nice correction. You can actually see the same thing played out right here as well in June. Right, there was sort of a decline, but then the hash rate dropped, the difficulty dropped, and the hash rate went back up. So I could see, the difficulty adjusting back up, hash rate's going to trade sideways down. And it's just, we go all the way out on this thing. This is nothing. This is nothing. It was significant, actually. If you actually look at it, I mean, that's pretty significant. It's like a 30% drop or something in hash rate, but it's recovered already. The difficulty adjustment is unbelievable, the way that it helps regulate that market. It's unbelievable. So quick little shout out, scan this code, check out the school community. You can get access. There's actually a free trial. You can join. There's amazing people on there. The first 100 people on there have the ability to book a 1-hour session with me and get lifetime membership access to the school. And then you will have to pay monthly. You will have to pay yearly to get access. I have a full 8-lesson course on there, Bitcoin Basics and Beyond. It's everything you need to know about Bitcoin, really, to just fully be confident, comprehend it, understand it, buy, sell, move, cold storage, everything is in that course. So if you feel like you're not confident in Bitcoin in some way, it's going to cover that. I'm working on a course that I'm publishing actively on the school as well, exclusively for the school there. That is all about how to use Bitcoin privately and and best practices for digital privacy in general. So that's going to be really, really important. Privacy is incredibly important. Digital privacy is incredibly important. So check that out. There's only one lesson on that one so far, but I've actively been working really hard behind the scenes to get a few things done for episode 2. Episode 2 is quite comprehensive and gets into coin joining and all sorts of stuff. So there's a lot of stuff I've been doing behind the scenes. So if you don't mind, check that out. And again, you can book a one-on-one with me to get lifetime access. It's the only way to get lifetime access. And then you're just in there forever. Otherwise, it's $21 a month and $2,100 a year. And that's going to be the price once those 100 members are in. Couldn't find the Satoshi shirt on eBay. Well, I wonder, it depends where you are. I think when I bought it, it had to ship all the way from Australia. Now there's ones in Canada. Should be pretty easy. Just look up Satoshi Nirvana shirt online. It'll come up somewhere. I saw you talking about OpenClaw on X. What is that about? OpenClaw is going to be closed claw soon, considering OpenAI bought it, and OpenAI is anything but open. And OpenClaw is like an agent service where you can basically start designing an agent that has a memory of what you talk about and ties into an API of an AI service, or you can run locally your own your own LLM that connects to it. And you can give it access to all sorts of things like its own email account, its own Bitcoin wallet, and its own calendar. You can tie that into your own to some degree. There's a little bit of security issues with stuff like that, of course. And you can really design an agent and an assistant that helps you in all sorts of ways. I've been working on this a little bit. I've sort of haven't been doing that much, but I flashed a new operating system on my mini PC, and I'm going to run it locally on there and give it all its own stuff so it doesn't tie into anything of my own for security reasons, and then mess around with it and show other people how to do it. But yeah. What's your second favorite air gapped hardware wallet? Um, I don't know. Probably the Foundation, I would say. It seems like the best other one. Maybe the Bitcoin only Keystone is pretty good, I've heard. I don't have direct experience with that one. I would have said the Jade, except that I had issues with my Jade. Andy Back is on the island, and I recently did a call with somebody who had some serious issues with their Jade. We had to factory reset it, which is, it's not something you should have to do to get it to work and connect again. So, and in fact, that's the same thing that happened to me as well. So, I would not say the Jade. I would not say the Jade. Would it be prudent to invest the same dollar amount in both Bitcoin and gold during these wild periods? I'm not sure on your, personal finance is personal for a reason. Depends what you think the value proposition of both are. Yeah, I think gold will go up in dollar terms, but I think it will gradually get demonetized, and there's a massive monetary premium on it beyond its utility value. My hope for gold is that it eventually goes to its utility value, so that it can be used in electronics, it can be used in jewelry, and it will have value in there and cost less to do so. So, you can't make jewelry out of Bitcoin. So that's it. That's what I think there. Any MSTRCC you're in? Yeah. Yeah. What am I in? I don't know. I can't remember right now. Sorry, Nav. You'll have to ask on the live stream on Maple, because I'm not going to pull that up right now. Hash rate just went up. Frat leader from ASU just mogging everyone. Testosterone on the network through the roof. Yeah, it's true. The clavicator or whatever just got frame mogged. That's probably why the difficulty adjustment or the hash rate is up, I would say. Absolutely. It is best practice to use a different Bitcoin address. More Bitcoin address doesn't mean that there is additional users. Is there a way to determine actual new adoption? Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so you can kind of estimate a little bit off of Bitcoin addresses, and obviously they're not each one is a new user, as you said. So you could create an estimate of how many on average addresses people might have. That's one way to do it. But yeah, adoption is an interesting one. I think hash rate is a really good representation, because it's part of the network that we can more accurately see, although that's an estimation as well based on how long it takes for blocks and the difficulty adjustment of the network. But I think that's a pretty accurate or helpful information. And if you actually look at the hash rate of these Bitcoin competitors, it's abysmal. It's unbelievably small compared to Bitcoin, which is kind of a representation of how dominant Bitcoin is. Is there a determination actual new adoption? That's a good question. I don't really have an answer for that right now. I'd have to think deeper on that. You could maybe think about like Google Trends, um, numbers on public numbers of users on public disclosures from companies like Coinbase and different public Bitcoin. Did I just call them a Bitcoin company? I almost called them a Bitcoin company. Crypto companies. That could be one way. That could be one way. 4 of 4. It's only one more wallet. Yeah. A 4 of 4 multi-sig it means that you need to bring 4 wallets together to sign a transaction. The complexity of that means that if you lost any one of those wallets, you wouldn't be able to sign a transaction. And of course, you should have backups of every single one of those wallets, but you also need to find secure locations for hopefully multiple backups of each one of those. So I don't think that's a good idea whatsoever. If you were maybe doing a 2 out of 4 where you need to bring 2 together, I don't know. Again, you got 4 wallets out in the wild and somebody only needs to get 2 of them, or maybe a 3 out of 4. I don't see the necessity for that at all. I think 2 out of 3 multi-sig is very sufficient for the vast majority of people. Ah, that's a really good point as well. It's a rare multi-sig type, so you risk anonymity. Yeah. Yeah, really good point. Legends Chuck Chuck Norris has got to get 100 wallets together to sign a single transaction. That dude is never moving out of cold storage. That's how you hodl, man. You make it literally almost impossible for you to make a transaction. I think actually there was some sort of bug within Bitcoin that was found out from some Bitcoin um, like clone. Maybe it was Bitcoin Cash or something like that, because somebody did a massive multi-sig. I got to look into that story. It's kind of an interesting story. I've been told it a couple times, but somebody created this massive multi-sig that essentially broke, like it wasn't expected within the code, and created and figured out some sort of bug with that. I got to look into that. It's a pretty interesting one. Give me business ideas for Bitcoin. I was thinking of starting one, but not sure what to do. I wouldn't start a business unless it's something that you're passionate about. That's my idea. Would definitely not get into something just because it's a business and you want to do a business that's Bitcoin related. You gotta find your own passion for things. You can't build on somebody else's conviction of an idea. I think there's lots of great ideas out there. Like, uh, well, most of the things that I want to do are just completely not about money. I want to create an open source book that is directly, concisely for orange pilling for somebody that wants to exactly understand Bitcoin, be able to pass that book on, give it to as many people as possible. Um, but I want to open source it. I don't want it to be a profitable thing, because then that'll stop people from being able to use it. I want to create a private Bitcoin tax software, but I want it to be open source because I don't think people should have to pay for that. Where you can input all your CSV files, you can calculate tax loss harvesting, adjusted cost basis, you can print off, file all sorts of things, um, completely open source. Take the money away from coin tracking or coin tracker or whatever those other websites are that charge you a year reoccurring fee. I think that's a good idea. I want to create these are all my ideas that I want to do. It's just when I can do them, when I can figure out how to do them. I want to create a spam resistant voting platform for Bitcoin reputation, where people have to basically put up sats over the Lightning Network, create Zap events to be able to vote in one direction or another, whether somebody is trustworthy in this industry. Because as I said earlier in the show, there's a lot of people hustling and grifting off the back of Bitcoin. So those are all my ideas. I don't think any one of those is going to make you serious amount of money. I don't think you should do any idea that you're not passionate about. And of course, you build passion, but uh, you need to start with passion as well. Passion's important. helps you stay focused on task and doesn't allow you to get distracted. This is a good idea too. Just start a business and then accept Bitcoin for payment. This is part of what drives adoption. This is part of what convinces people that Bitcoin is useful as well. Shows people the value of it. Yeah, I have a business. I do the coaching. You get basically around 10% off from paying with Bitcoin, and it's really easy. Works really well, and a lot of people have paid with Bitcoin since I've enabled that using Speed on my website. Works not too bad. Not too bad at all. Taxes, what's that? Something it's basically blatant theft by somebody with more power than you is what it is. It's unfortunate, but it exists nonetheless. All right. So we're going to do 2 more tosses in the Bitcoin wishing well. It's been an hour. I appreciate you guys all being here. I appreciate your time. This is a competition that I've mentioned 3 times already. This is my 3rd time mentioning it, that Bitcoin Well does. It's sort of a reward program that is on their platform. Bitcoin Well is my favorite Bitcoin exchange. You send them dollars, they send you Bitcoin directly to cold storage. No third-party platform risk, no FTX collapse. None of that can happen with Bitcoin Well. So that's why I feel safe and secure promoting them, talking about them. It's not a paid sponsorship thing. I do have an affiliate link with them. But that's about it. So it's all on my own volition to share this. And it's always fun doing this with you guys. So get out your Lightning wallets. If you're the first person to scan this QR code that's about to pop up on screen, you will win 500 Satoshis. 500 big ones. And also, again, check out my school community. Book me for a one-on-one, get lifetime access, or just join the free trial. Check it out. There's lots of amazing people on there already. Every single day, there's people talking about something. Great community is forming on there. There's exclusive content in the form of my 2 courses. One is Bitcoin Basics and Beyond. The other one is Best Practices for Bitcoin for Privacy. And that one's being actively published on there. So you'll see it as soon as the episodes come out. And it's the only way to get access to those right now. Yeah, appreciate you guys. We're going to do one more toss. Somebody's going to win 210 sats. 210 sats. All right, everybody. Where is the scanner in Bitcoin Well? There's no scanner in Bitcoin Well. You have to have a Lightning wallet. So you use something like Coinos or Wallet of Satoshi or Blue or Moon, and you would bring up the Receive tab or the Send tab. Sometimes it's a little bit wonky. There's a little UX issues with Lightning Wallet sometimes. But basically, you open up the camera within there, probably through Receive tab, and then you point the camera at the screen, and you will win some Satoshis if you're the first person to scan. But this one's already gone. All right. Appreciate you guys. Thanks, everybody. That was the question there that I was answering. All right. Appreciate you all. Have a good week. We'll see you on Friday at Maple Bitcoin. We're going to see you tomorrow, next day after that with some video on demand, some recorded videos I made. Tomorrow's video is about the death of Bitcoin. Bitcoin's dead, everybody. So check that out tomorrow to get the obituary. All right. We'll see you guys.